Good evening everyone. I'm Ankit and you're watching StudyIQ IS English channel. This is 13th of June and we are going to discuss important articles from the Indian Express today. Yesterday I made a conscious decision that I will not cover personally the events relating to the plane crash that happened yesterday or anything or any article remotely relating to it. But today when reading the newspaper, as most of the news were filled with those kind of articles only, I realized that there was this one article that is important from your overall understanding perspective, and that is why I'm going to make an exception and cover the first article today that is somewhat relating to the crash that happened yesterday, right? Now the notes for this session, you can download it from the Telegram channel. The article that we are going to start with our today's discussion is obviously relating to black box. Black box is a kind of a recorder that is kept in the aircraft and it helps to record various kind of data from the aircraft, and God forbid if the air crash happens, the investigators, they retrieve these kind of black boxes which will help them ascertain what was the reason behind the crash. So after a crash, obtaining the black box from the plane's wreckage becomes the most important part. So we'll try to understand in our today's discussion what kind of instruments are kept in this black box, whether it is actually black in color or not, everything we are going to discuss. Now this discussion pertains from GS paper 3 perspective, that is science and technology, right? So these are the articles that, the first article that we are going to cover. In the second article, you understand this is the biggest development right now in the globe, that Israel last night, it attacked many of the nuclear installations in Iran. That is why war clouds have emerged over the Middle Eastern region. So what were the reasons behind such an attack? What will be the consequences on how it may impact India will be the subject of our today's discussion. Now these kind of development, they become important from GS paper 2 perspective, obviously, because if there will be a global event or a global conflict, automatically, directly or indirectly, it will affect every country in the globe, and India is no exception, right? So we'll discuss our second article from the perspective of international relations. In the third article, we are going to understand in great detail about what is merchant discount rate. Why we are discussing MDR? Because the finance ministry yesterday said that they will not levy any kind of a charge of MDR on the unified payment interface, that is the UPI payments. So first we'll try to ascertain what is MDR, how it is levied, and why is UPI exempted from MDR, right? So that is the subject of our today's discussion. In the fourth article, this is an article that was left out because of lack of time yesterday. We will discuss in great detail about the India-Europe relations. What are the factors that have brought India and Europe closer to each other? But still there are many challenges between these two entities before the relations could flourish even more. So everything from our mains perspective we are going to discuss in these four articles. In the fifth article, we are going to understand a very important species that has been spotted after a long time in the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir, that is the Eurasian otter. So any species that is in news, we understand those species from the perspective of three different facts: habitats, habits, as well as protection status. So we'll do the same for Eurasian otter as well. Eurasian otter is important from GS paper 3 perspective, that is environment, because it relates roughly to the species that is in news, and India-Europe relations again is important from GS paper 2 perspective. MDR is a part of economy, so the relevant paper here is GS paper 3. And in the last article, if the time permits, we are going to understand few facts relating to Sant Kabir Das. Sant Kabir Das was one of the famous personalities in Indian history, and he belonged to an era known as the Bhakti movement. So what kind of a contribution that Sant Kabir made on Indian art and culture? We'll understand his contributions in great detail in our today's discussion, and this article, as you can understand, is relevant from GS paper 1 perspective, right? Give me a minute, I don't know why it is not working. Good evening, Bishwajit, Kanchan, Baga, Jui, Simte. Good evening from Manipur. Oh, good. I hope you are safe, Simte. I am unable to pronounce your first name. If you can help me pronounce it, I'll be very thankful. Sipra, good evening. Yashi, Dhakkan Babu, Namaste. Rishi, good evening. Baga Spinks, mic closer, please. Is my voice audible to you all? Shushmita, good evening. Lydia, good evening. Reshma, Anuj, Bubbly, good evening. Yashi, Shushmita, okay. Rishi, voice clear, thank you. We'll check your speakers, okay. Well, in my system, it shows the volume is correct. So I guess, Baga, the problem is on your end. Okay. Siddhumati, thank you for your information. So we'll start our today's discussion. Okay. The notes, as usual, you understand, these notes will be available on the Telegram channel known as ATS Live. So you can go to the Telegram app on the top right hand corner. You'll be able to find the channel. Do not forget to subscribe it and download the notes, which will be made available few minutes after this session concludes. Okay. Let us start our today's discussion with this first article, which appeared on the explain section. As you can see from this screenshot, it says, or it talks about a very important device which is installed in every kind of an aircraft, be it civilian aircraft or be it fighter aircraft. This is known as black box. So what is a black box? How does it help in investigation? We'll try to understand in our today's discussion. Obviously, this is the kind of an black box that is there in every aircraft. And the context why are we discussing this article obviously is the air crash that happened yesterday for the Air India Boeing 787 Dreamliner aircraft, and this is the first instance where this kind of an aircraft has crashed ever. And this was traveling from Ahmedabad to London, and it crashed few meters outside the Ahmedabad airport, and it was carrying 242 passengers, and miraculously only one person has survived. Rather, it is expected rest of them all have perished, right? Now this aircraft can only manage to get about an altitude of 600 feet before crashing into a nearby locality. This locality was also populous, so it is expected that people might have died even in that locality also. Now the cause of this crash right now is unclear at this stage because this is an earlier stage of the crash. However, as usual in the aftermath of an air incident particularly, the wreckage will be examined and the black boxes which is there in the aircraft will be retrieved, and this process will help the investigators to piece together the information what actually happened and what were the reasons that downed these aircraft, right? Now, before understanding what is a black box, which is basically a simple flight recorder, it originated back in 1950s, and it originated because of efforts made by a very important scientist or a field expert known as David Ronald de May Warren, who was an Australian person, right? Now, he was recruited in a special team in 1953 to analyze a mid-air explosion incidences that happened in the world's first commercial jet airliner known as de Havilland Comet, right? So this is the plane I'm talking about. This was world's first jet airliner. Earlier airliner, they were not jet engines or they were not powered by jet engine. This was the first airliner that were powered by jet engine, and automatically when an aircraft is powered by a jet engine, its speed is much higher than the turboprop aircraft, right? Now, this aircraft was launched for commercial operations back in 1952, but in its initial years, this aircraft or this kind of an aircraft saw many severe crashes, particularly mid-air explosions. So these team of experts, they were hired to these team of experts, they were hired to ascertain the reasons why these aircrafts were exploding mid-air, right? Now, while conducting this investigation, Dr. Warren, he borrowed the idea of the black box from the world's first miniature pocket recorder. He said when a recorder can be made so small that it can be kept in the pocket and it had the ability to record conversations, why can't we install a similar kind of a device to record conversations that happens between pilots, between air traffic controllers, and what are the instrument or what are the parameters of the flight, right? So to record all these instances, the black box were installed. Now, initially, when this idea was floated, this was resisted by the civil aviation community, particularly by pilots, because they thought this kind of a device will be used to spy on the crew, right? But by 1956, Dr. Warren had come up with a prototype which he called as ARL Flight Memory Unit, and it allowed storage of up to 4 hours of voice and flight instrument data. So this was the first prototype known as black box that helped the scientists to ascertain various parameters about the aircraft. Now, despite its resistance by the civil aviation community in 1963, following two fatal aviation disasters, it was Australia that was the first country who made installation of these flight recorders mandatory in the aircraft. And in the initial days of the black box, the information was recorded onto a metal strip, which was then upgraded eventually to magnetic drives, and now these are having solid state memory chips which help them record these data. So you understand how the technology of storage of these data have progressed. As you can see from your laptop or your computers also, earlier we used to have magnetic hard drives, now we have a solid state hard drive. Similarly, these kind of solid state memory units are also installed in the black boxes. Now let us understand why is it called as black box, because the earlier photograph that I showed you, those were orange in color, right? So why the name black box? Why not orange box or something else? Now it was before Dr. Warren, there was this French engineer, Francois Hossa, who began working on a data recorder, and this was back in 1930s. And this data recorder that he made, it was equipped with sensors that would optically project 10 parameters into a photographic film. So obviously this box was black in color, and that is why the name of such recording devices now has been given black box. And in this recording device, the film ran continuously in a block that was constructed to prevent any light from entering into it. So that is why when you make a device black in color, automatically it does not have the ability to reflect the light or allow the light to interfere with its recording. So that is why the name black box has been given to such a device. Now this name has continued even though the outer box of the recorder that we witness today in the modern civil aviation, they have always been orange, which is a bright color, and it makes easier to identify metal case in a case of a wreckage, right? So this is how the term black box has been used to identify the flight recorders. Now let us understand what kind of different equipments are there in the black boxes, right? Now most of the aircrafts right now, both fighter and civilian aircraft, these are equipped with two kinds of black boxes. First is known as a cockpit voice recorder, and another one is known as a flight data recorder. Now these two recorders, they record information about flight and help reconstruct the events that may have led to an aircraft incident, right? Now the CVR or cockpit voice recorder, it records radio transmission and other sounds that goes on in the cockpit, such as conversations between pilots, engineers and the air traffic controllers, whereas the flight data recorder, it consists of more than 80 different types of information, and it records 80 different types of information, which includes altitude of the flight, airspeed of the flight, where is the flight heading, what is the vertical acceleration, other factors like pitch, roll, autopilot status, etc. So all of these 80 different data are recorded in the flight data recorder. Cockpit data recorder is basically recording the conversations that is going on inside the aircraft between the pilots, co-pilot and flight engineer, whereas between pilots as well as the air traffic controllers. Okay, so these kind of data are recorded in two different units known as cockpit voice recorder and flight data recorder, right? So this is the image. It will help you understand where these are kept. These are kept in the rear end of the aircraft, because that is where the impact of any accident is expected to be minimal, right? Now the recording devices, they are stored inside a unit that is generally made of very strong substances, obviously, because in cases of accident, because of the force of the impact, you won't want your flight recorders to be damaged. That is why you keep it inside boxes which are made out of steel or titanium, and they are insulated so that they are not subjected to extreme heat, cold or wetness. Now to protect these black boxes, they are equipped towards the tail end of the aircraft, where the impact of the crash is usually the least, right? So that is why, that is why they are placed at the rear end of the aircraft. Now there have been cases where the planes have crashed into a water. So to make black boxes discoverable to the person who are searching these black boxes, there is a feature in those black boxes because they are equipped with a beacon that sends ultrasound signal for about 30 days after the aircraft has been downed in a water. However, in certain cases like the Malaysian aircraft or Malaysian Airlines MH370, whose wreckage has still not been discovered yet after many years, these recorders have not been obtained. So there is a chance that despite such features, whenever the flight is downed in a water body, the recorders may not be found, right? Now, let's see how many of you will be able to solve this particular question. Sir, what is the made pan? Sorry, I did not understand you, Rishi. Virender sir, thank you. I was very curious to know virtually how black boxes help to detect actual cause of the aircraft crash. Sir, this is because they record every kind of data. What is the height or what is the altitude? So the ground controllers right now, they only know whatever the conversation they had with the pilots, but they don't know the exact changes in the flight duration or the flight speed, what may have happened, and they will get better idea once they recover the black boxes, and it usually takes about 2 weeks for the experts to analyze the data of black boxes. Revolutionary IS Academy, Divyansh, right? You come so often, that is why I usually forget your name. Now, a black box typically consists of two components, FDR and CVR. This is correct. Black box is designed to automatically eject and float on water in cases of an aircraft crash. No, it is having a beacon that just sends the signal. The flight recorder don't float in the water body, right? So, second is incorrect. First is right. Option A is the right answer. All of you have gotten it right. Now moving to the second article, this is a very good article. Actually it tells you what are the factors that have led to the Israel bombing the nuclear installations of Iran and what may happen in coming future, right? So I will try to simplify this article so as to help you understand the context, help you understand what is going on in this region, so that in case any question appears in the exam later on, you will have the complete picture, right? So bear with me, this article will be a long discussion, but I will try to simplify as much as I can for our today's discussion, okay? Now this appeared in the 15th page of the Indian Express, which is the explain page. Last article was also from the 15th page, and this, as you can understand, deals with India's relations with other countries. So it is important from international relations, which is a part of GS paper 2 syllabus, right? So let us start by understanding the context. Now, last night, Israel launched airstrikes against Iran with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. He has said that the forces have stuck at the heart of Iran's nuclear enrichment program, which they believe are important sites like Fordo, like Natanz, which are the nuclear installations of Iran. Now, in a video which was published by Israel government, the PM of Israel said that this operation was named as Operation Rising Lion. I have done a separate video on this particular channel to tell you how our military operation name, what are the reasons behind it, why India named its operation against Pakistan as Operation Sindoor, or why such kind of a big names like Rising Lion, Desert Eagle, Desert Storm are given to the names of popular military operations. There is a separate video, you can watch it. From our discussions perspective, this name is not so much important, okay? Now, while discussing this mission, Israeli PM said that Iran's threat, which is the nuclear weapons that Iran might get, it will actually pose a threat to Israel's very own survival. So, to ensure Israel's survival, this is the reason that the Israel have bombed nuclear installations of Iran. Now, first let us understand what is going on in the region so that you understand the reasons why Israel bombed Iran. Now, there was this very famous agreement that was signed in 1968 known as Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, NPT. It determines there are two kinds of countries, one those who have nuclear weapons and another one those who don't have nuclear weapons. And the countries who have signed it, they agree not to develop nuclear weapons in case they don't have them. Some countries like India, Israel, Pakistan and North Korea, they haven't signed NPT, right? That is why India, Pakistan, etc., they are not officially recognized as a nuclear weapon state, okay? Keeping that aside, let us discuss why we are discussing NPT. Now, this NPT obligates non-nuclear weapon states, the countries who are not having nuclear weapons then when this treaty was signed, to respect IAEA's safeguard agreement. The countries who have signed this agreement, they have said that IAEA inspectors can come and investigate our nuclear installations to see that we are not developing nuclear weapons, right? So IAEA, it has repeatedly warned Iran even before to prevent itself from increasing the stockpile of highly enriched uranium. Now you understand, to manufacture nuclear weapons, you require at least 90% of enriched uranium. Uranium, when it is found in natural substances, the percentage of uranium in the uranium ore is quite less. So, to develop power, you need uranium enrichment between 3 to 4%. Whereas, if you want to make nuclear weapons, you need to enrich uranium by 90%. So, Iran is somewhere in between. It is having a significant stockpile of 60% enriched uranium, which says going forward using this enriched uranium, Iran can further enrich it to reach the levels of 90%, which will be enough for it to use it in nuclear bombs, right? Now, IAEA, it has published an investigative report which has assessed that Iran was actually conducting secret nuclear activities at 3 particular locations. And what were these secret nuclear activities? That it was trying to enrich more and more uranium so that ultimately it achieves the target of 90% enrichment of uranium, okay? Now, IAEA Board of Governor, it declared that Iran was non-compliant of the provisions of Non-Proliferation Treaty, and this was first such resolution that has been passed by IAEA in 2 decades. Now, there will be possible ramifications because IAEA, who is the world's nuclear watchdog, have made certain observations. First is that if you remember, Iran earlier with US and with European countries, it has signed an agreement or a nuclear agreement known as Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. And this agreement said that the European countries, US, etc., they will relax economic sanctions on Iran, provided that Iran promises them that it will not develop nuclear weapons, right? So now, when these members of the JCPOA will find out that Iran is actually enriching nuclear fuel to get itself the ability to fire nuclear weapons, it will go back on their agreement and reimpose the economic sanctions that they had earlier imposed, right? So this will be the possible ramifications that European states might trigger snapback sanctions that they are earlier imposed and they have removed it once JCPOA was signed. Now this deal earlier had United States also in it, but when Trump became the president earlier on in 2018, he withdrew US from the agreement. But this agreement still stands because other parties of this agreement, European countries, China, Russia, etc., they still believe that Iran is not going to develop nuclear weapons. And this treaty or this agreement is expected to expire this October itself, right? So that is why it might lead to these countries who are parties to JCPOA, they might again impose several economic sanctions on Iran. Now, Iran, through its UN representative, now has threatened IAEA and other signatories of JCPOA. It has said that it will withdraw from NPT indirectly, which means if Iran withdraws NPT or Iran withdraws from NPT, IAEA inspectors cannot investigate nuclear facility of Iran. Similarly, Iran's foreign minister and its atomic energy organization, they've jointly declared that Iran will now open a new nuclear enrichment facility which will help them enrich even more fuel and maintain a big stockpile of highly enriched uranium. And this because they see that the IAEA board's decision of passing such a resolution is a political decision. It does not have any ground value. So basically, these two entities are fighting whether or not Iran can keep more stockpile of highly enriched uranium. Now, since April, even US and Iran has been under negotiations to re-sign a new nuclear deal, which will allow Iran to have some kind of a nuclear power generating arrangement. Now, till now, since April, US and Iran, they have conducted 5 formal rounds of negotiations, and this is intended to stop Iran from developing nuclear weapons. In exchange, that Iran has said, we will stop developing nuclear weapons, provided US and its allies, they need to withdraw the sanctions that they have imposed on Iran. And the 6th round of negotiation was expected to happen this very Sunday. And this was a big issue. Why this is a big issue, I will let you know. Okay. Now, at present, the biggest sticking point in the negotiation between US and Iran is that US wants Iran not to enrich the nuclear fuel itself. First, US does not deny that Iran can't use nuclear fuel to make power, but US says that you can't enrich nuclear fuel yourself. Rather, US is saying that US or its allies will provide nuclear fuel which Iran can use to generate power. But in any case, Iran can't generate nuclear fuel or enrich nuclear fuel, or in any case Iran can't develop nuclear weapons, right? So this is basically the touching topic, or this is basically the sticking point of the negotiation, why this negotiation have still not materialized. Now, Iran, it has said that it is prepared to implement confidence building measures and adhere to transparency in exchange for sanction relief, but Iran has made it a point that it has the right to enrich uranium within its own sovereign territory, and this is a given for Iran. But this far has been a red line for Washington, and Trump has said that this Iran's position of wanting to enrich nuclear fuel itself is unacceptable to US, right? So this is why even the current nuclear deal between US and Iran has not been signed. Now let's come to understand what is Israel's point of view in this matter. Now, Israel for long has been in vehement opposition to what will be the Iran-US nuclear talks. It says in any circumstances, US and its other allies can't allow can't allow Iran to have a nuclear facility of their own, because Israel knows that going forward in 5 years, 10 years, or any number of years, Iran is going to have its nuclear weapon, and Israel understands, or it feels, whenever Iran develops its own nuclear weapon, it will automatically target Israel. That is why Israel has earlier even threatened to use military actions in targeting nuclear sites. If you remember, in 2011, a very popular Iran nuclear enrichment site known as Natanz, it was attacked by a cyber warfare. And in this, Israel damaged remotely several of the nuclear enrichment facility of Iran, right? Like centrifuges. Now, what will happen now, right? Now, unlike European countries, you need to understand Israel, it does not have any locus standi in this issue. What is a locus standi? Does Israel has any direct stake in this region? No, because Israel is not a part of agreement. That was a JCPOA agreement. Okay, so that is why prima facie people feel that Israel can't impose its terms on the negotiations to an agreement which it is not a party to. Similarly, Israel's covert and overt operations against Iran, it has contributed to a cycle of violence that has dented the possibility of any nuclear agreement going to be signed in coming future. So that is why this article says that Israel's use of violence is actually detrimental, and it will only force Iran to develop its own nuclear weapons, right? Now, similarly, Iran's official at the highest level earlier, they have held that in case Israel attacks their nuclear facility, they will hold US responsible for it. And it will also invite a retribution from Iranian side, and they will conduct a devastating and decisive response on targets which will include US military infrastructure in the Middle Eastern region. So this is why the conflict is going to increase in coming future. Now, let us understand how India will be impacted by certain kind of a conflict that will happen in Middle East, which is West Asia from our perspective, right? Now, first, given you can understand, India imports 88% of its total crude oil requirements, and the major source from where India imports crude oil requirements are the Middle Eastern countries. So obviously, in case of a conflict that will happen in the Middle Eastern region, it will affect the supply of crude oil, and automatically the prices of crude oil will rise, and this will lead to inflation in India, and it will also increase India's current account deficit. Second reason is that India is world's largest source of remittances. That is, people of Indian origin living in other countries, they send a large amount of money every year, which is even more than $120 billion. And you understand, a significant portion of Indian people, that is 90 lakh approximately, they live in Gulf countries. So in case war happens in that region, it will lead to drop of income of people who are working there. Some people might even lose their jobs, and that is why India's foreign exchange that it gets in terms of remittances, they will also reduce. Similarly, Middle Eastern countries, they are a very big opportunity for Indian traders. Indian products are sold in large number in Middle Eastern countries, including UAE, including Saudi, including Iran, and this will disrupt India's exports and imports in the region. Automatically, it will negatively impact India's exporters who are sending different kinds of goods like engineering goods, like rice, like vegetables to these countries. Similarly, India's diplomacy will also be strained because India has good relations with Iran, India has good relations with Saudi, India has good relations with UAE. Similarly, India also has a good relations with Israel. So in case any conflict happens between these countries, India's diplomacy will have a tough time to navigate its relations between different players in the region, all of which it has a good relations. So India would be expected to take sides, but if India takes sides for one country, automatically it will negatively impact its relations with other countries. Similarly, India's security, internal security particularly, will be at risk. Suppose if war goes on in that region, it will pose a risk of radicalization in Indian society. Many of the Indian youths will feel that their interest is getting harmed. The religion of their particular religion is also being affected there. So that is why it will pose a risk of rising radicalization, and sometimes it may also lead to maritime insecurity. Why? Because if Indian ships are plying in that region, if they are attacked by one of these adversaries, it will impact India's maritime security. Also, it will pose a several humanitarian risk also for India. Many Indian diaspora people are living in that region. So India might need to conduct emergency evacuation like it did in Yemen in 2015, that was called as Operation Rahat, like it did in 2023 when Israel-Gaza conflict started, called as Operation Ajay. So these kind of impact it will have on India's interest. Understood? So that is why this article was very important. Now let's see how many of you will be able to solve this question. Yes, it will hurt India's interest and the use of Chabahar port, obviously. Yes, all of you are right. Option C is the right answer. JCPOA is a multilateral nuclear deal aimed at limiting Iran's nuclear program in exchange for sanction relief. So, who are the members of JCPOA? It was signed between Iran on one side versus countries like US, UK, Russia, China, France, as well as Germany. Now, these 5 countries are also the permanent members of United Nations Security Council, and in addition to that, Germany was also a member. Now, US has withdrawn from this agreement, so now this agreement rests between Iran and rest of these countries. Understood? Now, this issue between India and any country, which is a part of international relations, and we discuss international relations in great detail in our foundation batches, and the admissions to Pratigya evening batch, they are ongoing right now. You can still take admissions to these batches. These are available at a discounted rate right now, and you can get these discounted rate by using the code ATS Live. But please do remember that the admissions of this batch will close in few days from now, that is in 15th of June. To take admissions, what you need to do, you need to go to our website. You'll be first needing to create an account here, right? You can simply just log in by entering your mobile number. Once you're done logging in, there is a course, or there is this option that tells you how to take courses in different language. Now, I understand many of you who are watching this, some of you are from southern part of our country, some of you are from northeast or eastern part of the country, and I understand Hindi is not your first language. So please click on this all language style and select English. Here in these batches, we provide teaching exclusively in English language, right? Now, to take admissions in the Pratigya batch, you have to click this left wala tile, right? Click on buy now. Once you click on buy now, you will see 35,999. It shows the course fees, but you can still get admissions to these courses on a rate which is even discounted from this one. How to get discount, how to apply the discount code, let me tell you. Now click on buy now. When you see the bottom half of your screen, you will realize that there is a code which is flashing called as ATS Live, which enables you to get maximum discounts on all the courses that are available on our website. You have to use that code only. Just click on this add promo code and here write ATS Live, and when you're done writing ATS Live, click apply. As soon as you click apply, see the discount of 7,000 rupees is now applied, and you can get this diamond course at 29,999. Platinum you can get it at 23,999, and gold is at 13,999. In these 3 courses, you can obviously take admissions in either of these 3, but if you ask my opinion, I'll say opt for Diamond Batch. Why am I saying opt for Diamond Batch? Because in Diamond Batch, you get live classes, lecture notes, which is common with all the other course fees, but here you also have mains residential program. Suppose if you clear prelims, you'll be brought to Delhi and you'll be kept in a place where every of your expense, food related expense, study related expense, living expenses will be covered by StudyIQ IS, and you'll be kept in an atmosphere that promotes competition and it promotes excellence from your part, right? Similarly, you'll also be getting a prelims residential program. You'll be getting a selection box, which is different books for your different subjects. You'll also be getting Margdarshan, which is guidance from faculties themselves, and you'll also be eligible to get scholarships. Now, in case you clear prelims, I hope you do, you will be getting your full fees refunded back to you. Similarly, if you top your monthly test, every month, the topper of the monthly test is eligible to get 11,000 rupees of financial reward, right? And all of these benefits are exclusively available only in Diamond Batch. That is why I was telling you offer Diamond Batch, okay? And if you still want to get some clarifications about the different features that are available, this is the page you need to refer to. And as you can see, Diamond course has all the benefits, whereas some are not included in either gold or platinum. So make your choice accordingly, but do not forget to apply this code because this will help you save 7,000 rupees, okay? Now moving to this next article, this is from the economy page, that is on page 14 today, right? And it says that claims of MDR to be charged on UPI transaction are false, and this is a statement made by our Union Finance Ministry. Now there were many discussions or many speculations in the newspaper in past few days that Finance Ministry will levy MDR on UPI charges. Though the Finance Ministry has clarified or it has dismissed the report and saying that it will not levy any kind of MDR on UPI transactions, and while doing so the government remains fully committed to promote digital payments in India, especially via UPI. So you already understand what is an UPI, but do you know what is a merchant discount rate I am talking about? Let me help you simplify this concept. Now, why we are discussing why was Ministry of Finance dismissing the speculation of MDR taxes? It was because Payment Council of India, which is an industry body representing 180 members in India, it had earlier proposed to Union Finance Ministry so that they introduce merchant discount rate for RuPay debit cards for all merchants and a reasonable MDR of just 0.3% on big transactions that happens over UPI. Now, according to Payment Council of India, this levy of MDR on RuPay transactions and UPI transactions will ally with existing MDR structures that are already present for other instruments like credit card as well as non-RuPay debit card. So you understand, when you pay using credit card and when you pay using non-RuPay debit card, those transactions are subjected to certain fees known as MDR, and UPI is exempted from it. So what is this MDR? Let us understand it, okay? Now, first of all, let me give you a very simple example. Suppose you go to this shop and you buy a shirt worth of 1000 rupees, okay? So you are required to make a payment of 1000 rupees to the shopkeeper, and when you go, you take out your credit card, and when you show your credit card, there is this POS machine on which your credit card is inserted and you have to enter PIN here, and then your payment is complete. But you understand, your credit card might belong to ICICI Bank, right? Whereas the POS machine using which the shopkeeper is taking payment from you, it might belong to SBI. Because why? SBI, there is a bank account in SBI of the shopkeeper. So necessarily your transaction should happen from ICICI to SBI, and this will be authenticated using a machine known as point of sale device, right? So this device, it actually is a network that connects your bank ICICI with that of SBI, and similarly there is a POS machine installed with the shopkeeper that will authenticate transaction in your bank and will allow transfer of funds from your bank to the bank account of the shopkeeper. So establishing this network is a task of certain companies known as payment companies, and these are MasterCard, right? These are Visa, these are American Express, these are RuPay. So these companies, they basically set up network which help you transact money using your debit card and your credit card from what is known as POS device, right? Now earlier, why these companies are setting up the network, why banks itself are not setting up the network? Suppose SBI wants to take payment from you. So SBI would go to every shopkeeper saying that you keep our POS, but the restriction is you can only take payment from SBI credit card, right? Similarly, ICICI will also go to the shopkeeper and they say, now keep our POS device and you can take payment only from ICICI credit card. So if any big shop, they'll be required to keep 20-25 POS machine. This is not a good thing to do, right? So that is why, to make things simpler, these companies like MasterCard, like Visa, like American Express, like RuPay, they go to shopkeeper, say that keep my POS device, and using my POS device you can take payment from any bank's credit card, and irrespective of whatever bank's credit card you take payment from, I will deliver this money into your account. But in terms of commission, I will take certain charges from your bank to facilitate this transaction, and this commission that these companies charge on online transactions or on credit card or debit card transaction, this commission is called as merchant discount rate, right? Is hard copy available of study material? Sir, which study material are you talking about, Kanchan? Understood what is MDR, or should I explain it again? Yes, payment gateway is same. Payment gateway is basically a website. POS is a physical device that you see in the shopkeeper where you insert your credit card or debit card and you authenticate the transaction. So that machine, which is a machine belonging to these companies, they actually authenticate that your bank account in ICICI has that much amount of fund and facilitates transfer of the fund from your bank account, which might be in ICICI bank, to the bank account of the shopkeeper. Paid batches, sir. Well, hard copy available of study material. Yes, selection box is a hard copy. Others, you can contact the contact number here, right? See, there is a contact number here for queries. You can use this contact number and ask any of your query, okay? Rishi Pandey once more, okay. I will explain it once more. Now, suppose there is a shop, okay, shop where you go and buy shirts. So now when you buy a shirt, you obviously have to pay money for that shirt, and people these days, they have a tendency to use online payments or credit card or debit card. So shopkeeper will show you this device known as point of sale device where you insert your credit card and authenticate so that your transaction gets complete. Right? Now, there is a possibility that your credit card belongs to ICICI Bank because you have a bank account in ICICI. Similarly, the shopkeeper might have their bank account in SBI. So, how will money flow from ICICI bank account to SBI bank account, right? So, to make things simpler, what payment companies do, that they install these payment point of sale devices, saying that in case if you want to facilitate transaction from any bank account located in any bank to the bank account of shopkeeper, we are giving you this device which will facilitate all the transaction. And in the service that we are providing, we are going to charge you certain kind of a money that is known as merchant discount rate. So this is basically a commission that the companies are or the banks are paying to the service provider, that are payment companies like Visa, like MasterCard, like RuPay, to facilitate the online transaction, particularly of debit card or credit card, right? Any doubts? So this MDR is deducted from the transaction amount before the merchant receives the payment. And MDR, it covers cost of banks, payment service provider as well as digital payment platform, and it is also known as transaction discount rate, right? And this charge is charged by merchants. Who are these merchants? Visa, MasterCard, RuPay and American Express. These are the companies who are providing point of sale device, and they, to process these transactions, they levy certain charges. Understand now? Any doubt? Now normally the merchants itself, that is the banks itself, they pay MDR for cash based and UPI transactions, but to promote UPI in India, it is the government that is paying MDR to the companies so that to promote digital payments, okay? So whenever, sometimes when you go to a shop and you say I will pay via credit card, shopkeeper will say आपको 2% extra देना पड़ेगा, right? So why they ask for 2% extra? Because those shopkeepers will have to pay MDR which the banks are charging them, which the point of sale device companies are charging them, right? So this is what MDR is. Now, to promote digital payment in India, Government of India has prescribed a zero MDR policy for UPI transactions and for transactions that are done using RuPay debit card. And this was done primarily during the demonetization period, because during demonetization period, India's digital payment was very less. And to promote digital payments, government did this kind of a measure. And recently, Union government also approved a 1,500 crore incentive to promote low value Bhim UPI transactions, and this incentive is basically compensating the service provider for their MDR. So basically the MDR for your UPI transaction is borne by government. Understood? And PCI, that is Payment Council of India, it is pointing that rupees 1,500 crore allocation, it covers only the fraction of cost that is borne by the payment companies, and therefore payment companies are at loss because people are not using debit card, people are not using credit card for transaction, rather they are using UPI for the transaction. Therefore payment companies, they have set up their network but they are not able to maintain that network. And also these network require certain kind of cyber security measures, merchant onboarding, requiring IT infrastructure as a backend or servers, etc. So all of this is a cost that needs to be borne by the MDR, and when government is subsidizing UPI transactions, it is basically a loss for MDR companies. Understand? So this is why PCR was demanding MDR. Understood the concept MDR? Now let's see how many of you are able to solve this question. This is basically a question that appeared in prelims of 2018. Yes, all of you are right. Option C is the right answer. Now this article, we have to complete this article anyhow. Give me a second. Now this article is from day before yesterday and yesterday's newspaper. Both of these articles are talking about one thing only. Well, if both merchant and shopkeeper have same bank account, then still extra charge. You know why? Because the machine has been installed by a third party. So they will say, regardless of whether money is coming or not, you please pay me certain commission that will simplify all your business transaction, right? So that is why they will levy certain charges, which is basically 2% general. But you don't have to remember the 2% or 1%, you have to remember a concept. This is basically a service charge levied by companies like Visa, MasterCard, RuPay, American Express to help taking payments for merchants, which are basically shopkeepers. Okay. Now let us discuss this article. This article is basically saying that because there is a shifting global order right now, particularly marked by onset of Trump into the politics of US, it has created differences between the Western alliances themselves. And amid this disruption, India and Europe has found a new strategic alignment, which is driven by mutual interest in stability, multipolarity, and economic diversification. So this is the context. If you haven't understood, no need to worry. I will simplify what these articles were saying. First, you need to understand how has Trump volatility, how it has brought India and Europe closer. First of all, because of onset of Trump, there has been an increased unpredictability about US's relations with its more important allies like European Union countries. Like now, Trump sees basically these alliances as a transactional alliance. Earlier, America used to provide a lot of military support, a lot of defense support to these countries belonging to NATO, belonging to Five Eyes Alliance. Now Trump is saying, why should US provide you this security? Why can't you spend all of these monies in defense related infrastructure? Or if you want us to provide yourself the security, please pay us in kind, right? So this has basically questioned US commitment to the issues that are going on for European perspective, like particularly Ukraine and issue of global security, because US earlier it was providing many kind of benefits to its allies. Now it is saying that we'll provide you the benefits, provide you pay us in return. Similarly, Europe also, like India, favors what is known as strategic autonomy. What is strategic autonomy? Europe says that we need to make decisions for our own benefit. Therefore, France, Germany, UK, which are big players in the European region, they have brought a defense mechanism saying that now we will not be dependent on US to provide us military security. We will increase our own defense spending, and in that region, India can play a very important role. Why? Because first, India is an important player in the Indo-Pacific region, and India also, it views Europe as a swing state, particularly in the conflict between US and China. Therefore, both sides now prioritize both bilateral and multilateral engagement. You'll see Europe and India have a technology and trade council. They are already engaged in a free trade agreement talks. They are already establishing India, Middle East, Europe economic corridor, right? So that is why not just from security point of view, but for other reasons also, both India and Europe are coming closer. Now let's see what is the significance of growing India and Europe engagement. First, when India and Europe become closer, it will bring geopolitical stability in the region, because both of these countries don't want a unipolar world. They don't want a bipolar world. Rather, they want a multipolar world. Multipolar world means in a particular global order, there are more than 2 or 3 dominant players, right? So this will bring better interest for both India and Europe, and that is why they will also looking to collaborate in Indo-Pacific, particularly to counter the aggression of China in this region. Similarly, there are both increasing their defense and strategic ties. Europe has come up with a plan known as REARM 2025 plan, and in this plan, European countries, they will increase their defense related spending, they will increase their overall GDP growth, and this will particularly done by co-development of weapon systems. And here India can play a very important role. Moving from arms earlier India used to purchase arms directly. Now India can co-develop important military equipments with European countries. Similarly, it will also improve economic cooperation between these two countries. Europe is India's third largest destination of its exports. Similarly, if India signs a free trade agreement with the European Union, it will promote cheaper exports of Indian commodity into US, and it will promote India's exports into the European region. Similarly, both of these countries can make joint efforts on critical minerals, on artificial intelligence, on green technology, on space and quantum computing. So now the overall area in which both of these countries can cooperate, that is economy, defense, other emerging technologies like quantum computing, like AI, it has increased, right? Similarly, you can understand connectivity initiatives between these two countries are also improving, like establishment of India Middle East Europe Economic Corridor, and this is aimed to counter China's Belt and Road Initiative. Also, it will enhance Eurasian connectivity and secure supply chains for both of these entities. Also, it will provide diplomatic leverage for both India and European Union. Europe provides India greater strategic depth beyond its traditional partners like US and Russia, and India's engagement in G7 formats, in security dialogues, in G20 underscores its rising profile. So why wouldn't Europe want to increase its relations with India, right? Now, that doesn't mean that both of these relations do not have challenges to it. There are many challenges. First are the diverging foreign policy priorities. First, India favors strategic autonomy, whereas Europe has what is known as institutional multiculturalism. Institutional multiculturalism, you understand that Europe has people belonging from different cultures, people belonging from different ethnicities, and Europe also favors a same outlook for other countries also. Therefore, you'll see Europe sometimes it interferes India's stance on human rights, how India's domestic policies are enacted. Sometimes Europe makes adverse comment on it, and India does not like it, not even one bit. Similarly, there are slow bureaucracy and trade talks on both sides. India's foreign trade negotiations with Europe has stalled since many time due to delayed negotiations on tariff, data privacy and intellectual property rights. Also, you'll see that a China factor is a very big deal. European Union, it has a mixed stance on China. Sometimes it favors China, sometimes it doesn't, and it does not sit with what is India's vision of Indo-Pacific region. Also, there are many security constraints, like despite rising defense budgets, Europe still depends on US for meeting its key security guarantees, and this is where India's sensitivity towards third-party defense grouping is not good. India does not want to get into an alliance or a formal alliance with a country, be it Russia or be it US. That is why India is apprehensive of European Union, right? Now, what is the way forward? First, you need to build issue-based convergence. There are many areas where you can still cooperate, like climate action, like ensuring supply chain resilience, like digital governance and connectivity. So you should start from these issues. Then you need to institutionalize the strategic dialogue. That is, you need to have regular summits, working groups like Technology and Trade Council, Track 1.5 and Track 2 dialogues to iron out the differences. You understand what is Track 1.5 and Track 2 dialogues? MDR rate, you don't have to concern with what is an MDR rate. This is not a banking exam, right? UPSC won't ask you what is the MDR charges levied by banks like 2%, 3%. You need to understand UPSC just asked what is MDR, right? See, Track 1 diplomacy is when government and bureaucrats of the two countries are talking. Track 2 diplomacy is when business persons or members of civil society are talking to each other, right? And track 1.5 is in between. That track 1.5, it includes ministers and bureaucrats also, and it also includes businessmen and members of civil society organization also. Now understand what is track 2, 1 and 1.5. Any doubts? Similarly, you also need to ensure flexibility in the trade talks. First, prioritize a narrower trade deal early. You can sign an early harvest agreement that says the things we have agreed upon, we are signing FT on that, and the issues that are holding your trade deal, you can deal with it later. Similarly, you need to expand defense ties also. You need to promote joint research and development, technology sharing and co-production under Europe's defense modernization plan. And also you have to leverage multilateral forums. You need to strengthen India's voice in G7, make it a permanent NYT. You need to bring European I2U2 and European Union plus formats and position European Union as a bridge between West as well as Global South, right? So this is how you can improve the relations further between India and Europe. Before concluding our today's discussion, this is the mains practice question that I've curated on the topic. You can use the notes and try to formulate your answer. Whenever you write your answers, Eurasian author, I will do it tomorrow, no need to worry. And while writing the answer, please pay very important or close attention to how you introduce your answer and how you conclude your answer. See, body part writing pros and cons is very easy. How to start and introduce your answer, that is very different. So please work on your introductions. You can use the help of online medium. You can use help of ChatGPT to suggest you how to introduce the answer. Please use all these online tools so that you get better in answer writing. There is no shame in that. Okay. And you know, the notes will be available on the Telegram channel ATS Live. Okay. So this is all from my side for today. We'll meet each other again tomorrow at 4. I will deal with the rest articles tomorrow itself. Okay. So please have a very good day.